Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. After my parents divorced, my sister chose to live with our wealthy father, while I moved into my mother's rental apartment. A few years later, my father squandered the family fortune through drinking, gambling, and other vices. Meanwhile, my mother started a career in online streaming and became a famous entrepreneur. My sister's life took a drastic turn, and she came to me in tears. But when I wasn't paying attention, she poisoned my drink. Why should you have such a good life when we're both born of the same parents? Why must I endure hardships? She cried. I deserve to enjoy this good life too. When I opened my eyes again, we were back on the day our parents divorced. This time she rushed to hug our mother first. I want to live with Mom. I'm willing to endure any hardships. But she didn't realize that Mom could be even scarier than Dad. My sister had always been sweet-talking and charming, more favored than I was. So when our parents decided to divorce, they asked her first whom she wanted to live with. Dad was a wealthy heir, while Mom was a full-time housewife with nothing left after the divorce. Naturally, my sister, without a second thought, obediently hugged Dad. I love Daddy the most. I can't be without you. I want to grow up with you. Dad was overjoyed and lifted her high. Good girl. Then you'll stay with Daddy and be a little princess for life. My sister smiled sweetly, casting a smug glance at me when our parents weren't looking. Yes, she had always been like that, always wanting to compete with me. She was willing to do anything, even at the cost of others, just to defeat me. Both Dad and my sister were laughing happily, while Mom looked heartbroken. After a moment of silence, I took Mom's hand and said, Mom, I want to live with you. She looked at me deeply but said nothing. Years later, by chance, Mom's streaming career flourished. We moved from the dilapidated rental apartment to a neighborhood, and then to a villa area. Mom traded her old electric scooter for a Mercedes, then upgraded to a Porsche. Once, while Mom was driving me out, we stumbled upon a traffic accident. An electric scooter rider was going the wrong way and collided with a luxury car. The owner of the luxury car shouted angrily, while the scooter rider apologized meekly. His daughter was crying loudly by the side, but he kicked her, saying she was embarrassing him. The girl turned away in despair, and to my shock, it was my sister, Emma. When I glanced at the humble scooter rider, it was my dad. Emma saw me and Mom too, her eyes lighting up as she frantically chased after us. But Mom had already stepped on the gas, driving away nonchalantly. I hesitated and said, Mom, that's my sister. Mom replied coldly, I saw her. What do you want to help her? I didn't dare to respond. Mom scoffed. She was so cute as a child, but now she's grown up to be as ugly as her dad, a heartless ingrate. This is her retribution. I fell silent. Before long, Emma managed to contact me and asked to meet in a cafe. She cried bitterly. Sister, you have no idea what Dad is like. Emma revealed that Dad was a complete fool. He was incompetent yet greedy. A few years ago, he believed his friends' lies and, ignoring Grandpa's objections, invested in a company that was a scam, resulting in millions lost. Grandpa was furious and kicked him out of the house. I thought Dad would learn from his mistakes, but all he knows now is drinking and gambling. After being thrown out, Dad partied every night. On the advice of his girlfriends, he splurged and went to casinos. Within months, he spent millions, even accumulating over $6 million in gambling debt. Grandpa had given up on him, refusing to give him a dime. Helpless, Dad had to deliver takeout to make a living, but he was used to a life of luxury. Before, he had a chauffeur and wasn't even familiar with traffic rules. Soon after he started delivering food, he got into a collision with a luxury car, the very scene I had witnessed a few days ago in the cafe. Emma collapsed into my arms, crying heartbreakingly. Sister, I see that Mom drives a Porsche and wears Chanel, and your bag is Dior. You must be living well. Can you please tell Mom that I'm her daughter too? I don't want to live with Dad anymore. I want to be with her. She must miss me. In the first few years after the divorce, she often called me. Her eyes sparkled with hope, but the thought of Mom made me shudder. In the end, I said, You'd better not live with Mom, but I can give you some money. Emma suddenly looked up, a flash of resentment in her eyes, but soon gratitude replaced it. Thank you, sister. I need you to be the best to me. The next day, I transferred 50,000 yuan to Emma, and she suggested inviting me to her house for dinner. In her rental apartment, Emma handed me a cup of tea. "Sister, I remember you love jasmine tea. As a child, I specially picked this for you. Tell me if it's good." I took a sip, caught off guard, but soon the world spun around me. The last thing I saw was Emma brandishing a knife, slashing my face. "Emily, we're both born of the same parents. Why do you get to live so well while I have to suffer? You're so wealthy but only gave me this little, refusing to let me go back to mom. You selfish, greedy wretch." The endless darkness engulfed me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day our parents divorced, facing Dad's question. This time Emma didn't hesitate. She turned and hugged Mom tightly. "Emma can't be without Mom. I'm scared." Mom hugged Emma, touched in her embrace. Emma revealed a sly smile hidden from the sight of others. Emma silently mouthed to me, "Sister, this time it's my turn to soar." It turned out she had also been reborn, but she didn't know that Mom was scarier than Dad. Emma excitedly rushed to the rental apartment while I stayed in the villa. Dad remained as unreliable as ever. Just after the divorce, he was preparing to hit the nightclubs. His phone was filled with the sultry voice of a lover who could sweet-talk him into a good mood. He grabbed his coat and was about to leave when I stopped him. "Dad, who's going to have dinner?" I asked. "Isn't there a nanny to keep you company?" He replied casually. I bit my lip and said, "I haven't seen Grandpa in a while. I miss him a bit. Can you take me to his house?" Dad hesitated for a moment, sensing this. I continued, "The son of Auntie went to see Grandpa a few days ago. I don't know what they talked about, but Grandpa bought Auntie a new car." "Dad, did you know?" As soon as he heard this, Dad instantly stopped hesitating. "They're just taking advantage of the family. Emily, I'll have the driver take you there now. Make sure to say nice things about your dad in front of Grandpa, understand?" With that, he shoved me into the car. Grandpa lived in a secluded lakeside villa. In his eyes, my mother was a scheming woman who would go to any lengths to climb up the social ladder by marrying Dad. Deep and malicious in her thoughts, because of this he never liked Mom and by extension didn't like me either. After the divorce, Emma had also tried to win Grandpa over, but she was still the spoiled little princess at home. Once she arrived at Grandpa's house, all her little tricks didn't work anymore. No matter how much she cried or threw tantrums, she only received Grandpa's indifference. In contrast, Auntie's son Lucas was Grandpa's favorite. Whatever he said or did always won Grandpa's praise. Over time, Emma grew resentful. During a family gathering, she deliberately broke an antique vase and framed Lucas for it, thinking this would diminish Lucas's status. But what she received was a hidden surveillance video showing Lucas still firmly in Grandpa's favor, while she was punished by Grandpa's discipline. Grandpa scolded her for being cunning and vicious, doing everything for her own interests, and forbade Dad from ever bringing her back home from that day forward. Emma held a deep grudge against Grandpa. On Grandpa's birthday, Emma even posted a vicious drawing on social media, depicting a dead figure resembling Grandpa. Of course he saw it, but he ignored her. Later, when Dad went bankrupt, Emma's living conditions plummeted. It was then that she finally remembered Grandpa, kneeling at the old house's entrance, begging for his forgiveness. Grandpa didn't even show his face, and the security guard dragged her away. This time reversed itself. Emma rushed towards her dream life while I stood outside the lakeside villa, preparing to visit Grandpa. I took a few deep breaths and rang the doorbell. Even though Dad had given Grandpa a heads up that I wanted to visit, he still didn't seem inclined to acknowledge me. I wasn't annoyed, instead I found a corner and sat down. The years I lived with Mom were filled with humiliations far worse than this. This was nothing. Inside the study, Grandpa was checking Lucas's homework. Lucas, who was 17, excelled academically, and was a gifted teenager interested in finance and economics. Grandpa was a self-made rich man, but unfortunately, his children were all mediocre. Thus, he genuinely admired this driven and pragmatic grandson, often pulling Lucas aside to share famous business case studies from both domestic and international arenas. The questions Grandpa asked were quite challenging. Lucas answered the first few questions well, but then he got stuck on one. Grandpa patiently waited for his answer without rushing him. I weakly raised my hand and said, "Grandpa, can I share my thoughts?" Grandpa looked at me with skepticism. You haven't even graduated middle school. What can you say? If I can't satisfy you with my answer, I'll step outside and stand in punishment. How about that? Grandpa snorted, but Lucas said, Grandpa, why not let my sister give it a try? Grandpa didn't say anything, which meant he agreed. The startup funds for this group of entrepreneurs come from dubious sources. They opened up the mainland market for foreign companies using methods similar to intermediaries, relying on information gaps for high profits. Grandpa glanced at me in surprise and continued to ask, So what do you think their natural advantages are and what are their problems? I thought for a moment and answered, Their advantage is that they established relationships with foreign companies early on. However, it's a double-edged sword. Their problem is their over-reliance on the first-mover advantages of foreign companies, which prevented them from developing their own competitiveness. As the market moves towards standardization, their competitive advantages will also disappear. Grandpa looked at me for a while, his expression complex. There was doubt, scrutiny, but no longer any contempt. After a moment he asked, You're only 14. Where did you learn all this? I replied, There are many books in the city library and I love reading. But that wasn't entirely true. Among the clients Mom hosted, a large portion were beneficiaries of foreign company agents. They took shortcuts through connections, relying on relationships rather than their own abilities and skills. On a drunken afternoon, they would embrace their past successes. Thinking of this made me shut my eyes tightly. It wasn't a dim, ambiguous bedroom bathed in pink light. Clap, clap, clap. Lucas was gently applauding. He said, Emily is only 14, but her reading and thinking abilities are impressive. That deserves recognition. Then he looked at me with a warm and sincere expression. I'm in awe. I quickly shook my head. It's just coincidence. The financial and economic concepts that my brother mentioned, I don't really understand them. I still have a lot to learn. After a brief silence, Lucas asked, Emily, would you like to study with me? With Lucas's suggestion, Grandpa allowed me to sit in on the lessons, but he still regarded me with suspicion. He suspected that this was some sort of roundabout way to swindle him out of money, so he required Lucas to regularly report on my progress. In truth, there was no need for Lucas to monitor me, nor did I need anyone to pressure me. I attended classes methodically every day, and on weekends I either practiced the piano or immersed myself in the library. This was the life I had once yearned for. How could I not cherish it? As months passed, I was no longer just a listener in Grandpa's study. Often, I would debate passionately with Lucas over questions thrown out by Grandpa until he had to call a halt to our discussions. I didn't know exactly when it happened, but one day Grandpa stopped regarding me with a watchful eye. Lucas also ceased reporting my situation to Grandpa, complaining that his attention on me had wasted some of his time, which led him to lose to me in a minor test. Grandpa just laughed at this. I pretended not to know anything and quietly worked through my exercises at school. My diligent studying bore rich rewards. I won first place in a math competition, and my teacher said she would publicly commend me at the parent-teacher meeting. But as usual, Dad was unreliable. He promised he would attend, but half an hour before the meeting started, he told me he couldn't make it. Emily, I have an important meeting. Have the nanny go to the parent-teacher meeting instead. Okay, but I clearly heard a group of women giggling in the background. I didn't call him out on it and calmly hung up the phone. Then I sent Grandpa the list of math competition winners posted on the classroom board. My name and Lucas's were at the top of the middle school and high school categories, shining in the sunlight. Grandpa, Dad had something come up at the last minute and can't make it to my parent-teacher meeting, but the teacher is eager to talk to my parents about my future development. Can you come? Grandpa came to the school in person. This was a privilege even Lucas had never received. The homeroom teacher was overly anxious, and the principal rushed to greet him. Grandpa calmly took a seat at the head of the principal's office and asked, How is my granddaughter doing in school? Is there anything she needs to improve? It was a question he already knew the answer to. The homeroom teacher heard and said a lot of good things, stating that I was an exemplary student in every aspect. Only then did Grandpa nod in satisfaction. After the meeting, he hesitated for a moment and surprisingly instructed the driver to take us to the mall. I noticed that the girls in your class are all dressed up beautifully, yet you're so plain. Is your dad not treating you well? In the end, he ordered 6 or 7 sets of ready-to-wear clothes for me, along with several bags. Looking at the numbers on the bill, I felt a bit anxious. Grandpa, aren't you worried that I'm just after your money? He laughed heartily. Of course, I'm more worried you're not after it. I was taken aback for a moment and then laughed along with him. Emma thought to please Grandpa she had to rely on cuteness, emotional value, and acting obedient. But she didn't understand that Grandpa was a self-made entrepreneur who had seen countless sugar-coated bullets and the darkness of human nature. He didn't need, nor did he value praise and flattery that came from useless people. An aging authority figure was most eager to see a vibrant younger generation. As long as I kept proving my capabilities, I would eventually become the second Lucas, Grandpa's favorite. Years later, Grandpa specially renovated a study for me and Lucas. One day, while I was playing Go with Lucas, news arrived that Dad had stubbornly gone against Grandpa's wishes and invested tens of millions into a shell company. Now that company had collapsed. In the adjacent study, Grandpa was furious. Even through the wall, I could hear his roaring anger. Do you have a tumor on your neck? I've told you countless times that company isn't reliable. Why won't you listen? Stop explaining. From now on, I don't have you as my son. Get lost. I'll pretend you're dead. My heart sank. Just like in my previous life, Grandpa was about to expel Dad from the family. I just didn't know if this time Grandpa would also vent his anger on me, like he did with Emma, and kick me out of the house. Bang! The door to the study was pushed open. Grandpa stood at the doorway, filled with rage, his expression dark. Emily, come out. Lucas quickly got up and stood in front of me. Grandpa said coldly, "This is none of your business." Lucas was about to say something else when I tugged at his sleeve. It's fine, brother. Grandpa must have something to discuss with me. In the solemn and old-fashioned study, the aroma of poor tea filled the air. I respectfully brewed tea and poured it into a cup, placing it in front of Grandpa. Then, just like my first day here, I found a corner and quietly sat down. Grandpa stared at me for a long time, his aged eyes seeming to see through to my soul. I remained motionless, letting him scrutinize me for a while. Finally, Grandpa spoke. I'm planning to cut ties with your father. What do you think? I replied, Dad won't listen to reason. He's made a big mistake. It's time he realizes his errors. Grandpa asked, Aren't you going to persuade me otherwise? I almost sighed. Why should I? Last week, when we discussed the rise and fall of a certain family business in the U.S., I mentioned that if family members lack the ability, the company should be managed by professional managers. You know better than I do how much talent your father actually has. If I were to persuade you to keep him around, my conscience wouldn't allow it. Grandpa squinted at me and said, If I kick him out, you'll have to live a hard life. Are you okay with that? I smiled helplessly. The money is yours. You can give it to whoever you want. I have no say in it. As for me, whether I tutor or intern, I can always earn my tuition, so you don't have to worry about me. Having such a father is my fate. I don't blame fate. After a long silence, the teapot boiled again. I reached out to pour water, but Grandpa poured me a cup of tea himself. He gazed into my eyes and said, Having such a father is your fate, but in your fate, besides your father, there's also me. Grandpa kicked Dad out of the house but moved my luggage to his home. From then on, there was a bedroom for me in the lakeside villa. I no longer had to endure the various women Dad brought home because I had become Grandpa's granddaughter, the granddaughter that Grandpa protected. That day after school, I encountered an unexpected visitor. Emma. She was dressed seductively, her makeup quite exquisite, with long and fluttery false eyelashes that seemed to stir up a breeze. Emma scanned my outfit up and down, dramatically wrinkling her brow. I heard Dad went bankrupt, so I hurried to check on you. Honestly, sister, even if the family is out of money, you shouldn't dress so shabby. I glanced down at myself. My sneakers had unexpectedly ripped while playing basketball today, and I hadn't had a chance to change. My clothes were the most ordinary and comfortable, which is why I loved wearing them. As for accessories, I really didn't have any, like some girls in class who loved wearing bracelets and necklaces. Bracelets would slow me down when solving problems, and necklaces would get in the way when I exercised. Grandpa had given me a bunch of jewelry, but it was still in my closet. Seeing me silent, Emma thought I agreed. She leaned back and smiled brightly. You're so pitiful, sister. Unlike me, I already have 2 Hermes bags and many beautiful dresses. I live a princess-like life every day. I didn't want to discuss that and asked her. I haven't seen you at school since last year. Did you transfer? She replied. What's so good about school? I'm learning dance every day now, and Mom even helps me with my makeup and skincare. Mom says girls don't need to learn so much knowledge. Beauty is what matters. Saying this, she leaned in and pointed at her eyes proudly. See my double eyelids? Mom took me to get surgery. They look so much better than your single eyelids, right? Look at my hands too. I get full body treatments every week. Mom says that's called soft, as if boneless. And look at yours, they're all calloused. I opened my hand and looked at my palm. Those calluses were partly from holding a pencil and partly from working out at the gym. Soft hands couldn't throw a punch. I wanted hands with strength to control my life. Seeing my silence, Emma became even prouder. Are you jealous? But don't think you can go back to Mom's side. She prefers obedient and sensible daughters. She doesn't think much of you. I lowered my head and smiled. Yes, Mom liked obedient and sensible daughters. In the past, I was beaten black and blue for refusing to submit. Emma thought the makeup, short skirts, and designer bags that Mom bought her were signs of a mother's love. Little did she know they were all tickets to hell. Those beautiful dresses would be torn apart. The glamorous makeup would be ravaged and exhausted in the midst of the luxurious and exquisite bedding. Old men like to hear little girls begging for mercy. How could pie fall from the sky? My dear sister, you don't know the price of getting something for nothing is more expensive than money. After graduating high school, I received an offer from a top business school in the US and reunited with Luke. Grandpa was very pleased and held a graduation banquet for me. Lucas even specially flew back on an international flight to celebrate with me. Amid the clinking of glasses, a middle-aged man in a suit patted my shoulder. No wonder you're Alexander's granddaughter. Truly, a tiger father has no dog son. This idiom was actually used incorrectly, but on this occasion, everyone tacitly ignored the fact that my grandpa's real son was actually a foolish and incompetent waste, and now he was struggling to make money to pay off debts. I smiled and nodded, raising my glass to look at this uncle. The moment I saw him, I felt my blood run cold. This man had a mole above his right eyebrow and a scar on his ear. Beneath his suit, there was a large, unsightly birthmark on his chest. Why did I know these details so clearly? Because he used to be a frequent guest of my mother in the pink bathroom of our luxurious villa. Lucian's favorite pastime was to grab my hair and repeatedly push my head under the water in the bathtub. He said that my suffocation brought him the greatest joy. He claimed that my mother had taken money from him and depended on him for business. He could kill me, and my mother wouldn't care, so I had better not resist and should cooperate obediently. Otherwise, the whip in his hand would leave me bloodied and bruised. That face I would never forget. Seeing my strange expression, Lucas took the wine glass from my hand and subtly covered for me. My sister doesn't drink well. I'll take this glass. Everyone laughed and applauded, praising Alexander for being fortunate and how the Alexander family was close-knit and loving, which made them envious. Only Grandpa noticed my distress and suggested I sit in the lounge for a while. In the lounge, I gulped down ice water, trying to calm myself. By now, my mother should have shown her true colors. And what about Emma? What would she encounter? I took out my phone and called her. Sister, how have you been lately? On the video call, Emma looked at me disdainfully. Oh, so now that life is tough with Dad, you think of me? Weren't you acting tough before? Now you want to turn back? You should be begging me. I shook my head. No, I just wanted to know how you've been. Emma sneered. My dear sister, what are you being so hypocritical for? You must be wishing I was doing poorly, right? Too bad for you, I'm doing just fine. I'm in love. My boyfriend is wealthy and powerful, treating me like a little princess, and I'm now a key employee at Mom's company with over a dozen staff under me. My dear sister, I think you should focus on yourself so you don't end up delivering takeout with Dad. With that, Emma hung up the phone. I stared at my phone, lost in thought. In my previous life, after the divorce from Dad, Mom received some property, but she was used to a life of luxury and couldn't stand living frugally. Soon she returned to her old ways, trying to seduce another wealthy man. But she had aged, and no matter how well she maintained herself, she could. I can't compete with the youth and beauty of younger girls. After several failures, Mom realized that while those men lost interest in her, they seemed very interested in her daughter. And so my nightmare began. Is Emma truly happy like this? Or is it just the last flicker of hope before her mental breakdown? 6 months later, I returned to my country just in time for Grandpa's birthday. I dragged Lucas to help me pick out a gift for Grandpa, but at the auction I ran into Emma. She wore a tight-fitting spaghetti strap dress. Her makeup was glamorous and sexy, which clashed with the auction's atmosphere. But upon seeing me, she perked up. "Emily, what are you doing here? Is this the kind of place you can afford?" As she spoke, she glanced over my shoulder. Behind me stood Lucas, wearing a silver-gray shirt, looking suave and handsome. Emma stared at him in shock. "Is that Lucas?" Lucas nodded. "I am, and you are?" He didn't recognize Emma. Before, Emma and I looked quite alike, but now she had undergone double eyelid surgery, had bone surgery, and reduced her bust. Combined with her heavy makeup and sexy outfit, she looked like a completely different person. It was normal for Lucas not to recognize her, but hearing Lucas's question made Emma furious. "Oh, I see you recognize her but not me. How can you two possibly be together? Dad has gone bankrupt. What's going on?" As she spoke, she seemed to realize something. "You're trying to seduce Lucas, aren't you? Seducing him to escape your miserable life, right? How shameless." Without me having to say much, Lucas understood her identity as well. His expression darkened, and he reprimanded her. "You're talking nonsense." Emma's eyes burned with rage, her demeanor becoming sickly insane. "You're defending her? Do you know her family is bankrupt? Her dad is delivering takeout now, getting yelled at every day, and she gets beaten and scolded daily. You're defending this trash." Lucas frowned and protected me behind him. Calmly, he spoke. "I think you're mistaken. Uncle was kicked out, but Emily hasn't." As his words fell, Emma looked as if she had been struck by lightning. "What did you say? This is impossible. Emily should be delivering takeout with Dad. How can she be in college?" I couldn't be bothered to respond to her and pulled Lucas away, but Emma blocked my path. "Grandpa wouldn't value you. He doesn't even see me. How do you deserve it?" She looked me up and down as if she had found the answer. "Grandpa is a pedophile, isn't he? He actually likes this type. That old man pretends to be so virtuous. He could have contacted me earlier. I also have a lot of little sisters under me." I slapped Emma hard. "You can say that about me, but not about Grandpa. This slap is to teach you a lesson from Grandpa." Emma tried to rush at me but was stopped by a middle-aged man. The man had a mole above his right eyebrow and a scar on his ear. He was the guest my mother had desperately tried to please in my past life, Lucian. He held Emma tightly, apologizing to me and Lucas repeatedly. "I'm sorry, she's a bit offensive toward Alexander." So the wealthy and powerful boyfriend Emma mentioned was Lucian. How pathetic she willingly clung to the powerful, believing that all girls in the world must use their bodies to trade for something in return. I shook my head and said, "Mind your own people, Lucian." Lucian nodded repeatedly, but Emma kept poking at his drink. "That's me. Get it right. That's my grandfather." Lucian slapped her again and shouted, "Can you shut your mouth? The Alexander family has only 2 children. Someone like you who sells herself shouldn't be randomly claiming relatives." With that, he glanced apologetically at me and Lucas before dragging Emma away. At that day's auction, I successfully bid on a landscape painting from my grandfather's favorite artist. However, my mood wasn't that great. Please don't misunderstand. Emma brought this on herself. I didn't feel sorry for her. I just thought about all the younger girls in my mother's villa and about more guests like Lucian. Maybe now I should do something on Grandpa's birthday. The place was filled with guests. Lucas and I presented the landscape painting, and Grandpa smiled exceptionally brightly. He held us, greeting each of his close friends one by one. "This is my granddaughter Emily, my little lucky star. Her investment vision is spot on. This landscape painting was bought with the money she earned from her investments. Emily, this is your Uncle Rhett, the chairman of XX Group. This is Aunt Jang. She founded the XX charity. A string of titles and names slid by, but only one hit my eardrums hard. Rhett. I remembered that name from my past life. It had appeared countless times in Lucian's rants. Rhett was a military man who got into business full of integrity and was unable to tolerate dishonesty. Originally, he was Lucian's boss, but after Lucian was caught accepting bribes, Rhett fired him. After leaving the company, Lucian started his own business, stealing many clients from his former employer. Because of this, the two almost became enemies. This time, it seemed they both wanted to win a certain government bidding project, and it was a crucial period for project preparation. Thinking of this, I raised my glass to Rhett and toasted. "So you're the chairman of Rhett Group? Just a few days ago, I heard your company's name." Rhett smiled. "Oh, where did you hear it from?" I smiled back, speaking clearly. "I ran into Uncle Lucian at the auction a few days ago." Hearing Lucian's name, Rhett's smile faded slightly. I pretended not to notice and continued. "What a coincidence. This is the third time I've run into Uncle Lucian this month. The first 2 times, he seemed to be drinking with Amelia. Amelia is my mother. After her divorce from my dad, she not only had plastic surgery but also had a fortune teller change her name. No one in this city knew her true background anymore. She had become a completely new person. Over the years, she built her business from live streaming, and it grew larger and larger, making her a hotshot female entrepreneur. Outsiders viewed her as a self-made inspirational figure, but insiders knew her so-called business was nothing more than a den of transactional relationships. At that moment, hearing Amelia linked with Lucian, Rhett almost immediately realized something. "You mean Amelia?" I acted innocent. "Yes, that aunt is very beautiful, and the young girls around her are also pretty, but the uncle sitting with them seems a bit familiar. I think I've seen him on TV." Rhett's eyes lit up. He hurriedly filled his glass with wine, reached out to clink with me, and then drank it down in one go. "Emily, your grandfather was right. You're truly a lucky star. I didn't know what it meant to kill with a borrowed knife. I also didn't know what it meant to hit a cow across the mountain. I was just casually browsing news on my phone one afternoon when I discovered that my mother's company had gone bankrupt, and she herself had been detained along with several regular public relations managers from the villa. They all ended up in a detention center. Law enforcement revealed some information to the reporters. They said they received reports related to bribery and transactional relationships, which they took very seriously, launching a special investigation and obtaining sufficient evidence. In due time, once the court made a ruling, they would imprison the relevant criminals. In the news report, the eyes of the men and women captured at the scene were blurred out, but I could still recognize the man with the ugly birthmark, Lucian, and the sexy woman fleeing in his arms was Emma. Unlike the reports exposing social darkness, I turned the page and entered the financial news. There it wrote about the rise in our group stock price as it boosted shareholders' confidence. After folding the newspaper, the nanny brought me a gift. It was a 21st birthday present from Uncle. It was a crystal clear jade pendant. He said nothing and left no note, but I knew this precious gift was for a reason. I closed the box and stuffed it into the wardrobe, like my many shiny accessories. It was beautiful, but I wasn't worthy of wearing it yet. Every beauty comes at a price. Before I exchanged my labor, my talent, and my effort for it, I wasn't qualified to wear them. Another half a year passed, and the shocking nationwide case was judged. The main culprits of sexually exploiting underage girls, Amelia and Emma, received severe penalties. One afternoon, I received a call from the detention center. They said my sister wanted to see me. Outside the detention center, I ran into Dad. I thought he was here to see my sister, but to my surprise, he was delivering takeout nearby. Upon seeing me, he approached me shamelessly, licking his face. "Emily, can you say a few good words for me in front of Grandpa? Blood is thicker than water. How can you bear to watch me?" Lucas wanted to block him, but I stopped him. I looked calmly at the exhausted man and said, "You deserve it." Once, Grandpa had high hopes for him and nurtured him carefully, but he squandered it. Everything on drinking, gambling, and debauchery. I still remember one day when I came home from school as a child. His bedroom door was open, and inside were naked men and women. I don't know if they were high on drugs or drunk, but one naked man went in, and my dad was just sitting there watching, laughing heartily. I was only 7 years old that year. If it weren't for the nanny who rescued me, I don't know what would have happened to me. At this moment, looking at my sleazy-looking father, I could no longer find a trace of the dashing spirit from the past. This is the fairness of fate. You think you're the chosen one, but fate will push you to where you belong. Dad shouted something from behind, but I didn't pay him any attention. I just strode forward, leaving my childhood nightmares behind in the prison visiting room. Behind the glass, Emma wore an orange vest and was handcuffed, but as soon as she saw me, she became very agitated, desperately trying to lunge forward. I lowered my eyes at her and said, "Calm down, sister." Emma said, "I heard you graduated from business school." I nodded. She continued, "I heard you joined Grandpa's group as the general manager." I corrected her, just in turn. "Whether I can stay depends on my ability." She went on, "I heard Grandpa felt sorry for your long commute and bought you an apartment in the city center." I replied, "I have to pay rent to Grandpa." But she seemed not to hear, lost in her own world. Why should I? Why should I? This was supposed to be my life. If I had chosen Dad, all of this would be mine. Prestigious schools, people, everything. "Emily, you ruined my life." I looked at her with pity. "Didn't you choose Dad?" Emma snapped out of her frenzy, trembling as she pointed at me. "You too." I didn't answer, only said, "Everyone wanted to save you in my past life. Dad went bankrupt. Emma found me and wanted me to take her to Mom's big villa. I refused because I didn't want her to suffer like I did, but she hated me for it and poisoned me to death in this life. I met Lucian and realized that Mom might still be doing the same thing, but she didn't see it as shameful. Instead, she took pride in it, even collaborating with Mom to oppress other girls. News reports came out saying Amelia was evil, selling girls for personal gain, but Emma was worse, being a henchman and coming up with torturous methods more severe than Amelia's. Looking at the person behind the glass who was crying and wailing, I felt not an ounce of sympathy. Emma, no matter how you choose your ending, won't be good because your intentions have always been wrong. You treat people as tools to gain wealth and glory. Your whole life has been a pursuit of effortless dreams. Even if you're tormented and humiliated by one old man after another, you still think that's more honorable than working hard. Grandpa was never wrong about you. You, like Dad, indulge in your desires, and like Mom, you're ruthless and selfish, using any means to achieve your goals. Emma cried and laughed, almost breaking down. No, I want to start over. I want to start over. With that, her expression twisted as she lunged at me. But she forgot that there was a thick layer of glass between us. She crashed against the glass with a thud. Then she was dragged away by the prison guard. Her sharp cries echoed in the hallway. "Emily, you won't have a good death. You won't have a good death." I just smiled. Who exactly won't have a good death? When I received the news of Amelia's death, I had already rotated through various departments in the group. I heard that Amelia happened to be in the same cell as the mother of a victim. That woman was a scammer who deceived everyone, just trying to earn money for her daughter's medical treatment. But after she was imprisoned, her daughter was lured, deceived, imprisoned, and tortured by Amelia. One night, that mother took an unexpected approach to end Amelia's life. It was said that Amelia died a miserable death. On the phone, the staff asked me if I wanted to claim her ashes. I said no. Whether thrown away or lost, it didn't matter really. The call ended, and I just continued writing my proposal when a colleague asked me what I wanted to order for bubble tea. I blinked and smiled. "I want mango." During my rotation at the group, I sometimes complained to Grandpa about the intense overtime which was nearly taking the lives of young people. So Grandpa paid close attention and required us to benchmark against foreign enterprises, adopt an efficient style, and eliminate unnecessary overtime. He even fired several HR and department leaders who had introduced overtime culture into the group. By this time, Lucas had already become the backbone of the group's business department. He was always very smart and had grown up listening to Grandpa, so he was well versed in market matters. However, sometimes he inevitably faced problems with being too far from the front lines and poor information flow, so he would come to seek my help. I had no great skills. I had just concealed my true identity when I first joined the company so I could mingle at the forefront of the group, hear various gossip, and then secretly tell Lucas about the things that the crowd hated most, but that the leaders liked. Then Lucas would swoop in like a hero, becoming a great savior in the eyes of the group's employees. After voluntarily working overtime on Friday, I really volunteered. Lucas picked me up to have dinner at Grandpa's house. On the way, the music in the car was melodious and cheerful. Lucas said absent-mindedly, "When I was a kid, I thought you and your mom were no different." I laughed and scolded, "Are you okay? That's such an insult." Lucas chuckled, a gentle smile on his lips. "Yeah, but later I realized something seemed off. You actually resemble Grandma more." Grandma, the co-founder of the group, who built it up from scratch alongside Grandpa, supporting half of it all by herself. I accepted the compliment with a tinge of guilt and said, "Actually, I've always wanted to thank you." I often brag. I talked about how it was my hard work, diligence, and intelligence that made Grandpa recognize and support me. But that's not entirely true. As I raced forward trying to leave behind the nightmares of my past life, it was Lucas who first extended a helping hand. He suggested to Grandpa that I attend classes with him. That's how I found my place in Grandpa's old-fashioned study. After I expressed my sincere gratitude, Lucas smiled. Just then the traffic light turned red, and he stepped on the brakes, flicking my forehead with his fingers. "Miss, we're family. There's no need for thanks. And you might have forgotten, but when Emma pushed me into the lake when we were kids, you jumped in to save me." I was stunned. "That happened too?" Lucas shot me a glance and added sincerely, "Though back then you were only as tall as my waist and didn't really save me but pulled me down. At least your intentions were good." I burst out laughing. The night breeze was gentle, and the bright moon hung high in the sky. Schubert's piano piece was melodious and soft, landing on my fingertips. I heard Lucas's slow, relaxed voice. "So, Emily, everything in this world is just the cause and effect cycle of kindness. Rather than thanking me, you should thank yourself because you are a good person. Even if you don't meet me, you'll encounter others." I lowered my head and smiled softly, though inexplicably, tears welled up in my eyes. Once I lived in a home filled with calculations and barriers. My mom only wanted money, and my dad only loved women. My sister was a spoiled little brat, constantly trying to trip me up. Later, when Mom took me away, I thought it would start a new chapter in my life, but she used a cruel method that nearly ruined my life. During those years of captivity, different men invaded my room every day. I was even afraid to fall asleep, terrified that when I opened my eyes, it would be yet another unfamiliar face. What I couldn't understand the most was that the person who packaged me as a gift to others was my own mother, the person who was supposed to love me the most. "Mom, why did you do this? I'm your daughter." Countless lies intertwined, becoming the knife that cut into my veins. The sleeping pills I swallowed and the despair that I couldn't escape even in death. But thankfully everything has changed. I have a serious yet loving grandpa by my side and a capable, upright brother. They care for me, urge me on and support me to grow freely. My bedroom is decorated warmly and cutely, surrounded by little cats and dogs, along with the financial times. Those dark, painful, spine-chilling memories are far behind me now. I wiped my tears away and turned to look out the car window at the big bright moon. Lucas clearly noticed but tactfully didn't pry, casually changing the subject. "Grandpa secretly asked me what birthday gift to get you." I thought for a moment and said, "Don't buy anything. I just want to eat his egg-fried rice." Lucas laughed exaggeratedly. "Seriously, miss, that's all it takes to make you happy?" I smiled. "Yeah, isn't Grandpa's homemade meal enough? There are people willing to make me happy. There are people willing to cook for me, and I can stand under the sunlight living a clean, fearless life. That is the best gift life has given me."